Hi, everyone. Hi. Can you hear me? I don't think I need this microphone. I definitely need it. Anyway, my name is James Smart. I'm a recovering journalist. But I currently work for Nation Media Group as the podcast editor. Before I'm a recovering journalist is before I've been on TV, I've been reporting about many things. I love doing talk shows and interviews, and I enjoy listening to people and telling stories. Dan was very clear when he told me that say a few words, and if you know Dan, he means a few words. He underlined it like this is a few words. Please don't take 1 hour telling us a lot of gibberish and that sort of thing. So I'm going to spend just a few minutes to talk about what we think of what podcasts is like and the industry and the layoff of the business, and what we bring. The reason I said I'm a recovering journalist is I lost hope in media for a minute, and I left. Essentially, I woke up one day and I got extremely disillusioned by our space, because media has this capacity of overstating its importance and also understating its impact. This is what I mean. I started my work in journalism during the height of post-election violence. And as a young reporter on radio, I was sent to cover the elections in Kisii. And it was all fun and games because I was given a lot of money, which was 50K, by the way. It was a lot of money then, to go out in Kisii and cover the elections. And so the going was really nice, right? You're driving around and you're meeting new people, and the whole idea is just have your microphone and ask them, what's your story? Who are you going to vote for? It's typical dry cleaning, what we do in business. Just ask people and then listen to their story and then go and craft something and then send it back. Until it was not, until it became real serious, right? People that were very nice to you 2 days earlier, immediately, the election results were announced, they became something else. And as someone who was covering and getting into this business for the first time, this was my first experience, I was very confused. I did not understand, what is that? How can people who essentially are supposed to be, nice people who said nice things, all of a sudden turn and change? And I still believed in the power of the media, the power of the press, the power of storytelling. And I thought the problem was the people, right? Not what we had done before in terms of shaping the minds of what this election was about. And we all know the story on how that went and what happened. Much later, obviously, it was the question of what the media did then before the election. The kind of stories we were telling, the opportunities we didn't give people in their own spaces to speak their own truths, right? We felt at that time that we were gatekeepers, right? For, who should say what and what extent can they say those things, and how far can they, sort of bring their grievances, if you like, into the public. So we didn't understand our mandate, obviously. There was a lot of bottling issues that were happening with different people, different communities, as it is happening currently. And so as a reflection, much later, the understanding was our space and our job is to allow people to tell their own stories in their very own way, in their very own words, in spaces that we are supposed to sort of give them the platform. And that was the beginning of soul searching, personally for me. And so I've gone through the entire axis of believing that, hey, we are these very important people who are supposed to be listened to, who are the gatekeepers, who know so much about so many things, to completely the other side, which is what we are building next, which is the podcasting world, because radio is a very close cousin to the podcasting. We take a lot of sort of lessons and sort of a lot of key themes from radio, and we put it in podcasting, because audio is beautiful. Yeah, there's nothing better that you can have as a medium that shows people the true colors of things than in audio. It's an intimate space. It's the place whereby we create, a theater of the mind for people. Because if I can see you, I see how you look like. I don't need to be convinced you look like this. I see you. But your voice is different. I'll create a mind of, my image of who you look like and what you look like and how you sound like. I'll create perceptions about this person. Are they nice? Their smile is infectious. They might be, very nice people to hang around with, or they're very serious, or they're very intense. I'll create so many things in my head without seeing you. And so video robs you of that. Video is powerful, but it robs you of that, right? It robs you the opportunity of creating something in the mind. And so we started this journey of getting into audio, first as a media, to say that we're not this very important, so we take ourselves a bit less seriously in this space. And this to mean what? Currently, we are dealing with a crisis. The Nzui River, a bus, plunges in and people are killed, and we all watch it, we all see it. And like everything else, like I say, there's the media thinking that this is a very important story and take itself a bit too serious. That all will tell you is the number of people who are killed, will tell you perhaps of the people who are supposed to take responsibility over this. But here's the thing that misses the people, right? There's families who have lost people to date. 25 people in that bus were belonging from one family. They were going to a funeral. That's a story about empathy more than anything else. There's an accident, yes. There's questions to be asked, yes. But also there's a space for empathy, which is what I think we don't do too well, which is what I think that we should be doing a bit more, right? That all the other mediums are sort of populated with seriousness, all the seriousness that we need in the world, of having the most important people speak about these things, the politicians, the famous people, the comedians and everyone else. They are in every platform. But in this platform, we should find ways on how to have empathy with ourselves. Tell our own story, if you like, all right? Stories of how we need to live. Stories of how we can be friends with each other, how we can commune with each other. We don't have spaces like that a lot remaining. And podcasting remains, for us, that space where we can communicate with each other. I remember at some point, I think around 2013, 2014, there was a whole buzz in the world about Africa is where things are happening next, right? Everyone went on it, where Africa is this place where, young people, technology, mobile transfer, mobile phones, and that sort of thing. And it became such a huge thing that everyone jumped on it. It was sort of like a difference of the world all of a sudden figured out that we've called this continent a dark continent, and we need to make up. So we show up one day and say, oh, there are so many interesting things happening in the continent. But one thing that I remember missing from those conversations was there's always a tinge with the storytelling that happened in the continent of how the things that are wrong in this continent. If you see CNN, BBC, whoever it is, when people are dying, it's a very big story, very important story in the continent. When there's diseases, it's very big. We'll cover it. Coups, we've seen the coups like, it's been branded, sort of like the new thing that's happening in the continent, right? The coups and whatnot. There's coups elsewhere. But the ones in the continent get these sort of big headlines. So the world knows how to tell the African story very well. It's about death, it's about disease, it's about heart. But the world doesn't know how Africans live. Absolutely. They don't know that we are here, we have fun, we live, we raise families, we are healthy, and that is fine. But that story, it's fine for it to be a story that is told for everyone else elsewhere in the continent. We know how people in Europe, for instance, have fun. The concerts they go to, it's of little relevance, but we know about the concerts a lot. It's a big story. We have concerts too, right? We have things that happen here that is of not life and death, that it happens and it's okay. Those stories are unable to be told in these other mediums. And this is why podcasting for me is important, that I believe it's a space for us for the first time, because it's populated by independent people, it's populated by people who really care about specific themes in your own professional life, in your own personal life, perhaps its own personal experience. My thinking is that this place should be filled with a lot of heart and a lot of empathy for us, first and foremost. And then next, we will talk about the next important thing. I know we have done, a couple of sort of serious stories, if you like, in podcasting, and we have hosted very serious, quote-unquote, important people. But I know the question about numbers comes up next immediately after that. How many streams do you have? So that we gauge the level of importance that you're in and say, also, this is a very serious podcaster because their streams are listened by, 200,000 people per week, or whatever that looks like. I've started thinking and seeing sort of like a shift towards more engagement makes a bit much more sense, right? That people who are telling important stories, it doesn't have to be the biggest of streams, but the engagement, the kind of conversations that opens up and allows us to get into a world of new people, that's much more powerful and that's much more important. So what we're trying to do at Nation with our podcasting space is a few things, two things. One is we want to do the opposite of what we've done with all our mediums, which is to start from the bottom and be partners first. We are not thinking we need to own all the content. We think we don't need to produce all the content, right? Because we don't have that capacity. But that's exactly what we did with the cousin of podcasting, which was radio. And then it ended up being extremely too serious, right? And that I'm not sure can be saved. So we're trying to do it the opposite way. But one, to be people who first are partners in the business and in the industry. So we don't want to own all the content. We want to support podcasters. We want people to come to our platform and want to provide marketing support for podcasters and say, listen to these people, use our social media to sort of populate and give you all podcasters out there that have interesting things to say and interesting things to do, to give them a platform and say, look at these people and sort of advertise through our mediums, our traditional mediums. Why we feel that is important is our audiences who don't know podcasts or who might be interested in finding out new people and new ways of consuming content need to be sort of onboarded into this new podcasting world, right? So we know people watch TV, we know people listen to newspaper, or they read newspaper, listen to our radios. But then podcast is such a new thing that the user journey is not completely locked in. Like we don't know for sure how people listen to you and how people find you. Yeah, so they find you on social media, yes, but where else? Your content sits there. How do people come to you? And that's an important question that we have to solve. I don't think we will have the same sort of travel journey the way perhaps the US or the UK found themselves. I know Joe Rogan is sort of the top podcasters in the world, but also Joe Rogan was before, a media person, right? But he also came from a system that believed in talk radio. So the American ear is trained to listen to a talk radio person. So he fits in that system, okay? What is our system? How do you fit in our system? And my thinking is that I think our system we come from a storytelling background. I like to think that the most important things you know about yourselves were told to you, right? Maybe by your grandmother or an uncle or an aunt. They were told to you. You didn't read about them, okay? And that's that's our system. So storytelling really is natural to us as Kenyans, as Africans, and perhaps how we find podcasting and supercharge it would be by us going back to what is originally us, all right? By figuring out how to tell our own stories without so much noise, okay? By just being ourselves, okay? By being empathetic, by realizing that we bring people into our platform so that they not only tell their stories, but most importantly, that we share in their victories, we share in their hearts, but we want to make solutions about ourselves. And I think that is such an important thing in terms of format, that we find ways and means on how to seriously tell our own stories and remove all the seriousness that is in other platforms, that is on TV, that is on radio, We might borrow some things in there, but we need to find ways on how to bring ourselves in a level whereby it sort of recreates something that lives in our format. So I don't think, for instance, the biggest podcaster in this continent would be a Joe Rogan. I highly doubt it. I think it will be something else. I don't know what it is, but it'll be something else. And it would be something that fits what we know before, something that looks like us, feels like us, and sounds like us. And in that respect then, with all due respect, I like what's happening in the US and in the UK. I'm sorry, it's a pun. I could not, yes. I think we will find our own ways on our own spaces in means and ways that have perhaps nothing to do with what's happening in the US or in the UK, okay? It will be us, it will be something that really feels and sounds African, sounds Kenyan, sounds authentic, and perhaps that is how we'll supercharge ourselves and get ourselves out. So to respect Dan, I would like to end there and perhaps answer some questions. But thank you very much for coming. I hope that this, the time when we are together, we connect, we exchange ideas a bit more, and then we find means and ways on how to help each other, not just to format our content, but also how we can support each other, because that's something that is important for us, because these are very early days. And I'm happy to provide support to you as colleagues and friends, so that we can get you on your platform and get a bit more people listen to your content to add to what you already have. Thank you very much.